to stand out from the crowd. So the presentation is built in a way that it can address both questions that you might have, whether it's a company or it's a personal brand that you're seeking to learn more about or improve if you're already working on it. So I kind of already gave it away. For the past 10 years, I've been working with a lot of startups, starting companies with brilliant ideas. And this is where I've realized that at some point or another, those that manage to succeed and those that really manage to distinguish themselves and to truly stand out are those that push the founders forward and those whose founders dare to be the face of the company, because they were onto something, and that is that at that early stage, your reputation is gold to your company. And so having the ability to put that reputation at the service of your venture, and by venture, I mean a starting business. And yes, social innovation to me is a starting business. There's money involved and there's doing good. But if those two are not combined, then it's a non-governmental organization usually, or it's a volunteer organization. But the moment that there's a commercial aspect to it in combination with an impact that you seek to make in the world, then we're still talking about usually a business, impact-driven business. Hence, I call it venture. I'm sorry if I get the terms confused. Good luck to interpreters, especially getting this straight. But yes, so the personal brand and the business brand, the moment that you can make those two come together, then what you get is you put your brand at the heart of your business. And it's those companies that know how to do that we still remember 30 years from now or 100 years from now. And when you dig kind of in your memory, you'll see that being the case for most of those that you kind of worship or you look up to. So in that respect, I'm just going to let you guys take a look at this screen for a while. These are some of the questions that keep popping up at the moment that we work with small startups. I'll help the interpreters by reading them out. People tend to struggle on how to introduce themselves clearly to others, or they are having a hard time deciding what they want to be known for, or where to start and what channels to use to promote the idea that they're working on, or how to send emails that actually get responses versus end up in a trash or in spam. These are just some of the questions that, whether you're building a personal brand or a company brand, tend to be one of those nightmares that keep people awake at night. And so the presentation is around 6 topics of how to structurally and gradually start tackling it as you create your own plan for building either a personal or a company brand. Before I dive into them, are there any questions thus far or anything that I should be clarifying?
Sorry, Maya, do you know that your presentation is not switching of slides? I don't know if that's correct.
No, I did not. So that's a very good point. Thank you. Let me see. So have you guys seen the heart?
Yes, now yes.
And have you seen this slide?
We didn't. Now we are seeing it.
Okay. Let me try one more time with full screen, whether it switches. If I now switch to the yellow slide, agenda, do you see it?
No.
Okay, so that's going to be a pain in the ass. All right, hence I'm just going to have to stay in this very unfortunate mode, I guess.
Don't worry, it's okay.
All right. You know what? I'm not going to even try to figure out why that is.
No, go ahead. It's okay.
All right. So we'll be tackling these 6 points. We'll first dive into, well, what makes up a story when we're talking about building a brand, and what's the difference between your story as a company or as a founder versus the customer story of those that you're serving. Then we'll go a little bit into the positioning of the brand as such, switch into the style you choose to adopt. And by that, I mean the verbal and the visual unique style that is you, that becomes you. And then how you actually bring that online for everybody to see and interact with. And finally, what actions does that need to take? All right, starting from the story, there's this beautiful quote from Shaw that says the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. So first time I saw it, I really needed to think hard. And then I started realizing that, oh my God, this has always been the case with so many companies I've worked with. And this is still the case. We a lot of times assume people know and they feel and they identify in a way that we would like them to do so, but they don't. And the sooner that you're aware of that, the sooner you can start fixing it. So the very basic question that every brand starts with is, but who are you really? And sometimes it's such a good wake-up call to ask people to take a look at what you're building, to dare to take a look at yourself and tell you what it is that they really see. Because you might be thinking that you're one thing, they might be seeing another. And once you're aware of that potential misinterpretation, you have this beautiful chance of fixing it and deciding what that is. And the worst thing that you can do is assume. So you want to make it as explicit as possible. And it starts by making a clear choice. They will never be able to guess unless you were really clear about it. And a lot of times we have trouble deciding on what we want to be known for because we kind of want to tackle too many things at the same time. And we want to be this almighty person that is known for A, B, C, D, E, name it. But the truth is people cannot remember A, B, C, D, and they don't find it credible. And so they need a reference point. And the shorter and the more clear that reference point is, the more chance you stand of being recognized for who you actually want to be recognized for. And again, everything that I do address today is both on the level of a person when it comes to personal branding and the level of the company. So you can have very different outcomes if you don't pause to think about this. People can either be running to you or away from you. And so every brand, every concept of building a brand starts with kind of like identifying this message you want to leave them behind. If at any point, guys, you have questions, again, I do welcome the interruptions and asking them. All right. So what I'll do is I won't go into all of them too deep because my experience says that we kind of tend to circle around them in the questions round, and then I can create the depth that is needed. But for now, I'll walk you through the 6 elements of what it means to build a brand. Right. So the first question that needs to be addressed is your story. Who are you? What do you want to be known for? What do you want to be recognized for? Now, here's the tricky part. Usually people think they're done with it once they have done that. You know, I want to be known as the best chef ever or best home chef. But not a lot of them pause to think, okay, but what does my customer really need and want? And what is the problem in his life that I might be solving or not? And that story of your customer is not always the same as yours. And I love quotes. Here's another one that is kind of a nice reminder for me always as you go on that journey of identifying your customer problem and identifying your customer story. If you cannot explain simply, you do not understand it well enough. The moment that people come to me and say, you know, but I have 10 different types of customers and they have these like 100 different problems and I might fit into 6 out of the 8 for this one and 5 out of 10 for the other one. They're not nailing it. They're kind of like throwing rocks in hopes of hitting something, but they have not really like paused. They didn't allow themselves, again, to make the choice. Who am I really solving a problem for? And is that problem worth solving? There's, do you guys know Seth Godin? anyhow, one of the great writers, great intelligent mind, wrote a lot of beautiful books. In one of them, he kind of makes this beautiful metaphor of, like a lot of people these days, a lot of organizations these days, they tend to build a key, a solution, and then they go looking for doors that this key should be unlocking, meaning they go searching for problems that fit their solution. And so guess what his advice would be? How about we turn it around? How about we identify a door, meaning a problem, and then create a solution according to that problem? That's the only thing that really in the end works. So again, successful companies have kind of nailed this concept of we cannot be everything to everybody. Unless we're known for solving a very specific problem of a very specific audience, we will not really be memorable. And therefore, building a brand on this notion of I'm everything to everybody is a very challenging, very, very hard one, if not doomed to fail from day one. So let me see, sorry. Does customer understand? This is a little bit already communication. Maybe I should erase the slide for now. But one thing is to identify the problem. But now the question, of course, becomes, have I been able to communicate it in a way that my customer actually understands that they need me? If at any point you would like some examples to illustrate any of this, please let me know. All right, so 1 and 2 were story. One was you, and the other one is a customer. What do you want to be known for, and whose problem are you solving? Now that we have that, positioning becomes really easier, but the brand positioning is kind of like key in everything. Once you know yourself and you know your customer, you also have awareness of the playing field that you're operating in. Like, how does your product and your service actually fit on the market? What are other players in that respect, and where can you take the high ground? So what are the elements that would make people come to you, buy from you, engage with you, interact with you, help you with your venture to move it forward to the next level? You can do a lot of analysis, but sometimes you also have to trust your common sense. Hence, I use this quote here that sometimes, the hunch is what does need to be followed in that respect, because it's usually based on sort of facts in a subconscious level. But that said, you do need your analysis. So it's worth not skipping this exercise of, but why me and why not my neighbor that is doing pretty much the same thing? And for this, I have a very interesting exercise at the very end of the presentation that I would kind of like to leave you with. It is, oh my God, so simple and so very hard to nail. But once you've nailed it, you're really onto something. All right. So then the style. The style refers to the brand identity. So now that we have the story, that is on the one hand, your story, your customer story, and you were clear about how you want to position your brand with respect to your competitors and other solutions out there that also have the ability to solve your customer's problem. Now becomes the matter of, okay, well, how do I want to engage with them in a way that they indeed find me memorable? Now, brand will teach you that there are visual and verbal ways to do so. So it's about adopting a unique style, a unique tone of voice, and a unique look and feel. Now, when we start with tone of voice, here's a very simple, well, let's call it advice from my side. Take the one that you have a natural affinity with, and make it very smooth and ride that wave. Because if you're not funny, there's no point of adopting a funny tone of voice. If you're by nature not a rebel, you do not want to be a rebel brand or a challenger brand. Like, there are certain brands that we all love and respect, but we might not be who they are in core of our being. And the moment that we're not, imitating them just because we admire them or because they're successful, it's not authentic. But the problem is not only that's not authentic, the problem is that you cannot maintain that level of well, lying to yourself and in the end lying to people and constantly adopting a certain language that just isn't yours. So stick to your own natural one, I would say, and see how you can really work it and get it to another level. So visual identity, the same goes for visual identity. One of the most common mistakes people make when they build a visual identity for a brand is that they go for pretty or the trend, or trust the designer without briefing them of what the strategy of the brand is. But the thing is, like the tone of voice and like everything else, your brand is so much more than a logo and then set of colors. And also this needs to reflect a complete holistic picture of what you have decided that your venture or you want to be known for. And so they should also be very close to you, with respect, of course, to your positioning and to your client. And so just going for the pretty or for the trend, it will not make you stick out and will not get you where you in the end need to be, or at least it won't be the easy journey. Before I continue, are there any questions thus far? And I'm going to rely on one of you.
I have a question.
Yes.
What happens when, in matter of defining these things, what happens if you have a team and you have different voices, for example, you are in the team, different type of people, how you choose your tone of voice or your visual identity, like summing up the different kind of people that are in the team?
Yeah, that's a tough one. If it's a founding team, it's a little bit easier to answer that. Are you referring to a founding team of a small organization?
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the companies that I have actually sells jackfruit and we turn it into vegan products. And there, what we've done is what we've seen other founders also do, which is put it all on the table first. So put all of your ambitions of what we want as a founding team for the company, but also who we are as individuals. Now, and with founding team, you kind of quickly understand that you have actually chosen each other because you're aligned on either a vision of the company or, let's say, the change that you seek out to make with it. So your work ethics is already, if you've done a good job selecting your co-founders, should already be somewhat in the same bucket. When it comes to personal interest and personal preferences, it's good to speak them out as you kind of, let's say, compromise in a way of what does this company need us to do and what is the united voice that we need to be putting forward. And sometimes, and that's why I address the concept of, hey, there's you, but there's also the customer. Sometimes the customer needs to be leading in that respect. But also there is a sense of reality of what can we handle as a team. So in our case, we are somewhat rebellious and we would have loved to be a challenger brand, but we knew what it means to be a challenger brand and the fact that we didn't have the time and the resources to live up to the promise. But we found it all important that all the brand promises we make are something that we can actually deliver. And so we let go of the idea of being a challenger brand and we chose a different approach because that was a reasonable one to start with. And otherwise, we didn't want to set ourselves for failure. Does that
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So now that we addressed a few topics such as, the story, the positioning, and how to then use the visual and the verbal to actually stand out, comes the concept of, okay, now take it online and let people engage with it. People tend to be impatient these days. So whenever a website is live, if it doesn't immediately generate traction within a month, people tend to think of it as a failure, but that's not exactly how brand building works, nor business building, actually, venture building. It really is a process. So a wise man once said, do not judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. You have to be in it for the marathon and not for the sprint. It takes time and it takes constant attention. Once it's built, it needs to be nurtured. This concept is going to be lost on, I think, 90% of you, but one day you might know, like, giving birth is like the least of your problems. It's raising the child. That's where you like get the gray hair and look tired at 5 o'clock and like constantly ask yourself, but what am I doing wrong? Well, with the brand, it's pretty much the same thing. Once it's built, by no means does it immediately generate traction. By no means are the eyes immediately on you. People are loving your service or product. They're writing recommendation letters. Like, that's just a dream scenario that the television and just culture would like us to believe these days. But, you know, while the exceptions of a few might be out there, they will confirm the actual rule that for a lot of other brands, it's been like a long, devastating journey, and you're always working at the edge of a burn down, basically. So it really just starts when you put things online. I put this one especially for those that are interested in working a little bit more on their personal brand, because website for a lot of people that are starting is just a little bit a step too far. But whether it's a company, a venture, or you as a person, having a solid LinkedIn profile or a company profile can already do so much for you if you don't have the resources or the time to invest in a solid website. And so this might be different, by the way, per country and per region. I'm completely aware of that. But I'm in Europe, and here 90% of all businesses comes actually through LinkedIn. So this is really one of the primary business cards that you need to have in order for you as a founder, but also for your venture. And if that's not the case, people just don't take you as seriously as you deserve to be taken. So it's one of the first easy, low investment things that you can do for yourself and for your company to take that presence online. All right, now, once that's online, another Seth Godin quote, then comes the question, okay, so what do I need to do to actually engage with people now that my brand is findable, let's say. That's where brand becomes marketing. So that's where we start speaking about brand marketing. And again, Seth Godin, wise man, he says, if you want to learn marketing, well, do it first. And if you want to do it, well, it helps to know certain basics to learn about it.
So, una pregunta. No sé si Maja me escucha en inglés.
Go ahead and maybe somebody can translate.
Yes.
¿Sí? ¿O no?
Sí, dice que la hagas y que capaz que alguien le puede traducir.
Dejé escuchar en...
Hace la Vicky y...
Ah, bien, perfecto. Así... yo te quería preguntar sobre el LinkedIn cuando presentaste, ¿no? Es que tanto es una red laboral o es una red personal que habla de trabajo. También como esto relacionado a hacerlo propio de la marca personal, ¿qué tanto lo tengo que llevar a la persona o lo tengo que llevar a la persona a trabajo?
Maja, the question of Vicky, it's about in which degree the LinkedIn profile, it's a labor profile or it's a professional profile that you have to accommodate yourself like like personal branding of the individual or the brand. I mean, until what point do you need to manage the brand or the personal brand? I don't know if you understand very clear my translation, sorry.
No, I do. It is just, there are different possibilities that work best for different types of venture at different stages. I'll try to illustrate that. So first, let's talk about company. Just to make this clear, maybe I'm stating the obvious. A company needs to have a company profile. A company profile is not the same as a personal profile. On LinkedIn, I mean. Now, that said, there's also a lot of research done that shows us that personal profiles will always outperform the company profiles, if not by like times 6 or 7 when they compare. So when they put the same post or do anything on a company profile versus the personal one, The personal one is like skyrocketing in engagement versus the company one. And yet the company one needs to be there because that's sort of a basic sense of credibility. Now, what you then end up balancing is your engagement as a company versus the engagement of you as the founder or you as founding team. And now I guess the question can be interesting. How far do I go? Am I my company? Is everything that I do at the service of the company? I mean, yes and no. Like, I joined a venture called MeJack. So for example, you can look at my profile versus the actual founders. Although I'm one of the founding members right now as well, and one of the shareholders. I came a year later, and we chose to use the original two founders as the faces. So their personal LinkedIn profiles are completely at the service of, but I still have other projects. And I kind of balanced mine in between different projects that I have. And the same goes for other team members. So we do our part. We do put our profiles, let's say, at the service, but less so than the actual two co-founders for whom it has become equal. Like, my personal is my business because I've invested pretty much everything that I own in this business. And if this fails, like, I do not want to think about plan B right now.
I have a question related to that. How do you motivate your employees, for example, to also do that? I mean, because it's different if you are a founder or member of the founder team, or if you are an employee of the company.
Yes, that is a very good question. So if you're part of a company that you're in awe with, like you're so excited that you joined this company and you can't wait to tell your friends and family that you joined, I think the first thing you're going to do is scream it out loud on socials. However, if you join the company for the money and you go like, like I need to do this and that, those will be hard to motivate because they're not in it really. Like, they're in it for the paycheck. So you have two different employees, and it's not just employees, right? It's also the founders on the other side, or let's say the management team on the other side. Some are really just a money-giving employee, and the other ones are so much more than that. They can become family, friends, like they can co-share their business with you. So your willingness to put your profile at the service of the company depends on the situation that you find yourself in. And like, to that, the only thing I can say is we've all done a lot of jobs to earn money, but at some point you learn, you get new skills, and hopefully you move on to those where this isn't a question anymore. Because when they hire you, like, you'll be the first one to, before they actually suggest a post, be the one screaming it and drafting it and creating it by yourself.
Thank you.
All right. So the actions. So actions, basically what actions reflect in this structured presentation that I kind of prepared is just this reminder and this notion that just because something is alive or, well, online, doesn't mean that people automatically know how to find you, or they magically land on your LinkedIn profile, or magically land on your website. They read it first time and they're informed and they're enthusiastic and they do whatever you want them to do, whether that's buying, pre-ordering, the actions will depend on venture, right? So this magic usually doesn't really happen without a marketing plan. Now, for that, I could easily spend like 2 hours talking about marketing plan, which I'm going to spare you, but I'll just stick to the fact that it helps to have this basic goal setting with milestones, which is then your strategy, and understanding that it takes a long time and that you have to hit certain milestones before you can reach your goal. But without that clarity, you can't really experiment with different tactics to actually get there. So it's a game, but the goal and the strategy should be static. The game changes on the level of tactics. But that's it. And so as I'm rounding up, I guess my take-home message for you guys would be to kind of embrace this whole concept of brand building as an ongoing process. And actually, this slide doesn't really support what I'm going to say, but I'll get to it in a while. So actually, take home message. Embrace the concept of brand as something that's just always there in your venture building, in your like way of doing business. It's a constant thing. And it's not a deliverable. It's not something you hire somebody for and you let it go. And it doesn't pay off immediately. It takes a long time, and it's a continuous effort. And so that is what this slide illustrates. Once there is clarity on what you want to be known for and how you plan to achieve that, you will have to be constantly repeating that. And so branding then transitions into marketing. And marketing, sometimes they say in the most simple definition, is the act of memorization. I love that quote. Marketing is the act of memorization. I have to tell you something like 6 or 7 times, the research shows us, for you to have the ability to remember it. And I have to fight so many other signals that you'll be getting and so many other things that will end up, if we're talking about digital marketing, that will end up on your feed, to break through all of that noise, to get my very clear message, understanding my customer, understanding my playing field, understanding my competitors, knowing what my strengths are, what my unique selling points are, break through that noise multiple times to be registered. And still, a customer needs to hear it so many times before they actually like let the information land. And while I'm not going to talk about marketing today, I will just say that for the brands, we addressed these 6 notions, but the brand anatomy, as the book will teach you, which I was told most of you have actually read, there are 3 elements in that respect. I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking maybe I don't have the ability to go into them all too deeply, but I'll just name them very briefly. The core one is, do I understand what I'm building? The identity is, do I have the ability to stand out in a way that people remember me? And the interactions are everything that you do, and that becomes slowly marketing to continuously make people aware of the fact that you're here for a reason, and that reason is to solve a specific problem of a specific audience in the most clear language that you can possibly use. Because if you don't understand it well enough, if you can't explain it well simply, then you didn't understand it well enough, and nor will your audience. The book, I just had it there as well, how do we call this? People, not we. People tend to call it the branding Bible. This contains all the sort of guiding information on how to actually start building from scratch. And now for the exercise that I announced earlier. Brand strategy can be simple as just 1 page. Now, I am not kidding with you. It takes, like me still, if I have to work on a new project, anywhere between 4 hours to 40 hours to nail this with a client. And yet there are 4 simple questions, which is, why are you doing what you're doing? What are you actually doing? For whom are you doing it? And how do you plan to stand out? Here's an example, and I'm willing to share the presentation if anybody wants it later, with a filled-in example of one of the brands that you guys might know, Impossible Burger. We also have more examples in a branded change environment and the case studies library, in which this little exercise, for which we use this little exercise. But this is one of the things that I can recommend to start with if you're thinking about building either a company or personal brand. Just do your brand strategy on 1 page, on a napkin. And if you're clear on this, like, you're already halfway there. Now, that said, and I made this point a few times, it really does take a village to take a brand, and it's an ongoing process. Lately, we have switched branded change to a single membership model because we understand this concept. So it's a community, closed community of brand builders and change makers that basically use each other to help each other build and grow the brands that they're working on. And and offered a 20% discount to your community in case anybody wants to join for a year membership.
Masha, Patricia here is asking, what are other resources that you can recommend also?
Yes, I can definitely recommend taking a look at Story Brand and Business Made Simple University. Here's the link. Just go to com and then it will take you further as you go through different pages. He is very American. You have to like the tone, and if you don't, you have to see through it. He makes so many good points in all of his videos, his lectures, his online courses that are extremely valuable. This particular one is one of the 60 videos that he offers for free, so you can subscribe to get them in your mailbox for 60 days. So I can recommend that to everybody for sure. And he works on the crossroads of branding and marketing, and he teaches you how to communicate clearly, acknowledging, well, pretty much all the points that we previously discussed. He by now has 4 books, but this is his first one and still like the best one, as in the most logical one to start with, so that you don't skip steps. Seth Godin, he also wrote multiple books, but this one I would recommend. And I included one article only for those that are actually working on personal branding that Anne wrote on how to position yourself by doing something as little as getting your job title right. Any other questions, guys?
Yes, Patricia is also asking about the membership. She would like to know, what does the membership provides?
Membership provides exclusive link to all of our online courses that Anne has created on how to build a brand strategy, how to become a brand builder, how to become a good facilitator. So all Brand Change courses are only available within the membership. On top of that, we engage once per 2 weeks a famous speaker who has done this, and they share with us their struggle and their journey, and they take us along on the common pitfalls that we can all learn from. On top of that, she has created a library of many case studies so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then students have been doing the same. So there are case studies created by Anne, and there are case studies created by students. And there's just this sort of a huge library of everything worked out in detail, pretty much like brand worked out in detail, dissected for you, that you can learn from by analyzing. It's built in Mighty Network chat. So there is an option of constantly communicating, posing questions. People give each other constant feedback. Whenever somebody has a challenge, they raise their hand, and that's discussed and met with suggestions. So it's really this notion of you don't have to do it alone. Like, we're here for you. And it's a group of about 60, 70 people that are committed to helping each other build stronger brands for change.
Great, thanks. And I have one more question, if it's okay. Okay, when you talk about the goal, the strategy, and the tactics, you say that the goal and strategy should be fixed in a way, but of course I understand that once in a while you should change the strategy, maybe because the strategy is complete or because it's not working. So I would like to ask, when you realize that you need to change that strategy, which is the point?
Yeah, you're very right. So one thing that shouldn't change really is your goal. I mean, the strategy can be adopted based on what you're seeing work, because of course you're always continuously testing and experimenting. And before you know certain things, you work with assumptions, and those assumptions can teach you something. So in terms of strategy, for example, let me reflect on MeJack. We said at the beginning, we want to put our product in the supermarket. So we went for retail. Our strategy was a retail one. We pivoted very, very soon after 6 months when we learned that the margins were too low. It was going to be a very hard way to break through what was dominant world controlled by a few, that well, we didn't know at the beginning. And so we learned few obstacles, and we looked at the numbers, and so we decided that we were going to be business to business company, and that we would give ourselves 3 to 4 years to first become financially stable, establish a supply chain that we control from A to Z. And once we have that financial freedom, then we would venture on entering the retail again, while building the brand for the retail in parallel from day one. So yes, you can pivot, you can learn, but your strategy shouldn't change a lot when you've done your work correctly, let's say. So we rushed a little bit into the first one, but we adapted on the way, and since then it has served us well. And so to answer your question, it can change, but it shouldn't change that often, because tactics and the way that you approach it, they're constantly changing. But if your goal is set, then in the end, there aren't that many ways that lead to Rome.
Thank you very much. Okay, I don't know if anybody has any more questions. Now here, Patricia is saying thanks for this session. She's very happy to be here with you. So thank you very much, Maja. We will send with everybody that has registered of these events this link of the recording. So thank you very much for your time and for the presentation and for sharing with us all your knowledge.
Thank you for having me. And I see now a lot of chat messages, which I haven't been.
It's okay. We already get through that.
All right, cool. All right. Well, thank you for having me. And I wish you loads of luck with all your ventures. And as Anne would say, wish you the brand that you deserve.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Gracias.
Bye, thank you.
And